Did you know that at the start of World War II, America's armored forces were practically non-existent? Yet, within just a few years, the U.S. became an industrial titan, churning out tanks that would help win the war. American tank design wasn't always about being the biggest or the baddest on the block. It was about reliability, mass production, and battlefield flexibility. From the sandy dunes of North Africa to the dense jungles of the Pacific, American armor was the backbone of the Allied advance. Before the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. was already experimenting with its armored forces. The earliest tanks were the M2 series. These were light tanks, like the M2A2, often called the Mae West for its twin machine gun turrets, and the later M2A4, which upgraded to a single turret with a 37mm cannon. By 1941, these tanks were already considered obsolete. They were thinly armored and undergunned, but they were absolutely crucial. As America entered the war, its primary light tank was the M3 Stuart. This little tank was fast, mechanically simple, and incredibly reliable. It was armed with a 37mm gun and a bunch of machine guns, making it perfect for scouting and supporting infantry. In the Pacific Theater, the Stuart was a star. It was more than a match for the lightly armored Japanese tanks, and its speed was a huge advantage in jungle warfare. But in North Africa, it was a different story. Despite these limitations, its sheer dependability meant the Stuart stayed in service throughout the entire war, a testament to its solid design. But the Allies had a bigger problem. They desperately needed a tank with a powerful gun to counter German armor. This was a stopgap measure, rushed into production to fill a critical void. Its design was unconventional. This made it tall, awkward, and a big target. But it had that 75mm gun. It wasn't pretty, but it got the job done until something better came along. The Sherman was the workhorse, the backbone, the single most important American tank of the war. The Sherman was a masterclass in balance. It prioritized reliability, ease of maintenance, and speed of production over everything else. Initially armed with a 75mm gun, it was later upgraded to a more powerful 76mm cannon. Was it designed to go toe-to-toe with a German Tiger? No. It was designed to work as part of a team, a combined arms force with infantry, artillery, and air support, overwhelming the enemy with numbers and coordination. The Sherman fought in every single theater of the war, from the deserts of Africa to the hedgerows of France, from the Eastern Front with the Soviets to the islands of the Pacific. Its versatile chassis was adapted for countless roles, including flamethrowing versions for clearing bunkers, amphibious, duplex drive tanks that swam ashore on DHA, and the famous British Firefly, which mounted a powerful 17-pounder gun capable of taking on Germany's deadliest tanks. The Sherman wasn't the best tank on paper, but on the battlefield, its reliability and sheer numbers made it a war winner. As the war progressed, so did the technology. The M5 Stuart was an evolution of the earlier M3 light tank. It was essentially the same tank, but re-engineered with twin Cadillac engines and an automatic transmission, making it even more reliable and easier to drive. Its firepower was still limited to the 37mm gun, but it continued to serve effectively in reconnaissance and infantry support roles, particularly in the Pacific and in the final campaigns in Europe. However, by late 1944, a new generation of light tank arrived, the M24. The Chaffee was a game-changer. It was light, fast, and agile, like the Stuart, but it packed the same 75mm gun used on the early Shermans. This gave it a serious punch for its weight class. The Chaffee's design, with its well-sloped armor and torsion bar suspension, offered a much smoother ride and better protection. It arrived too late to have a massive impact on the war's outcome. First, seeing action during the Battle of the Bulge. Now, we need to talk about a unique class of American armored vehicles. The tank destroyers. U.S. doctrine at the time separated the role of tanks and anti-tank vehicles. The job of killing enemy tanks was given to specialized, fast, and heavily armed tank destroyers. First was the M10 Wolverine. Built on a Sherman chassis, it carried a 3-inch gun in an open-top turret. It was effective and served extensively in Italy and France. Next came the M18 Hellcat, the speed demon of World War II. The Hellcat was the fastest tracked armored vehicle of the war, capable of hitting over 50 miles per hour. It sacrificed armor for speed. Living by the motto, shoot and scoot, it would use its incredible mobility to flank enemy armor, fire its 76mm gun, and then quickly reposition. Finally, to counter the heaviest German armor, the U.S. introduced the M36 Jackson. The M36 mounted a massive 90mm gun, the same one used on the Pershing heavy tank. This gun could knock out German Tigers and Panthers at combat ranges. These tank destroyers were a critical part of the American Armored Fist, a high-speed, hard-hitting force designed for one purpose: to hunt panzers. As Allied forces pushed into Germany, they finally got the heavy tank they had been asking for, the M26 Pershing, arriving in Europe in the final months of the war. In early 1945, the Pershing was America's answer to the German Big Cats. It was armed with that powerful 90mm gun and protected by thick, well-sloped armor. For the first time, American tankers had a vehicle that could confidently take on Tigers and Panthers on equal terms. While only a small number saw combat, they proved their worth in legendary duels, like the one in Cologne, where a Pershing knocked out a Panther with ease. The M26 was too late to change the war, but it represented a major shift in U.S. tank philosophy and became the direct ancestor of America's post-war main battle tanks. Beyond the main production models, there were also several experimental and limited-use tanks. The M6 heavy tank was a beast, developed early in the war, but it was deemed too heavy and logistically complicated for combat and never deployed. The T-14 assault tank was a joint project with the British, but it too was cancelled. And, of course, we have to mention the various specialized Sherman variants, like the rocket-launching Calliope and the mine-clearing Crab, which showcased American ingenuity in adapting a solid platform for specific battlefield problems. In the end, the story of American tanks in World War II is one of incredible industrial and tactical evolution. The U.S. embraced a philosophy of winning through reliability, overwhelming numbers, and combined arms teamwork. Rather than trying to build an invincible supertank while an individual Sherman might have been outmatched by a Panther, it was rarely alone. It was easier to maintain, faster to replace, and supported by a tidal wave of industrial power. From the humble M2 light tank to the formidable M26 Pershing, these armored fighting vehicles were a critical ingredient in the recipe for Allied victory, forging a legacy that shaped modern warfare. And ring the bell so you don't miss our next video.